Hello there. We're going to jump right into a topic that I know has a lot of you talking and maybe even anxiously checking your portfolios. And that's the wild, fascinating world of silver.
If you've been keeping an eye on the markets at all, you've definitely seen it. One minute silver is soaring, the next it's taking a pretty sharp dive. It feels like a roller coaster, doesn't it? Well, today we're going to break down exactly what's going on.
And just to give you a sense of the scale here, look at this number. Over the last year, the price of silver has shot up by nearly 200%. I mean, that is a staggering increase. It's the kind of move that makes everyone, from lifelong investors to folks just watching from the sidelines, really sit up and pay attention.
And this really captures that roller coaster feeling, doesn't it? Just this month, silver hit an all-time high, climbing over $93 an ounce. Wow. But then just this week, it stumbled, dropping about 6% to fall below $88. So what on earth causes that kind of whiplash? That's the big question we're digging into today.
To really get a handle on its price, we have to first understand what silver really is for. It's not just a pretty metal locked away in a vault somewhere. It's actually a critical piece of our modern world. Just look at this list. Silver is literally everywhere. It's probably in the device you're watching this on right now. It's in our electronics and, of course, in jewelry. But its role is getting even bigger. It's absolutely essential for clean energy, think solar panels, and even for the really advanced hardware that powers artificial intelligence. So all of this creates a constant baked-in demand for the metal.
So where is all this silver coming from? Well, the supply is pretty concentrated in just a handful of countries. Mexico, Peru, and China. They're the big three. Okay, so now that we've got a sense of supply and demand, let's look at what makes the price jump around day to day. Right. So this is where we get into that daily volatility, because while all that industrial demand provides a sort of price floor, it's often the big news headlines and political announcements that cause those sharp swings we've been seeing. Here's a perfect example. A recent headline, just like this one, shows you exactly how a single political decision can send ripples all the way through the market. The price didn't just drift down, it dropped, and it dropped in direct response to this news.
So here's how it all played out, step by step. The president decided to negotiate instead of slapping on new tariffs. And that decision, it immediately calmed a lot of fears about supply chains getting messed up. So the market kind of breathed a collective sigh of relief. And that newfound stability caused the silver price to fall. But that's not the only thing going on. This brings us to a really key idea, safe haven demand. Think of it this way. When the seas of the global economy get stormy, investors look for a safe harbor to park their money. And for ages, precious metals like gold and silver have been seen as that exact harbor. And here's another real-world example from that same week. News broke that tensions with Iran were easing up a bit. Well, that meant the political seas were suddenly looking a lot calmer. And when there's less risk out there in the world, there's less demand for that safe harbor, and the price of silver can drop as a result. By the way, if you're finding this explainer helpful, we'd really appreciate it if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. That way you won't miss any of our future updates. But daily news isn't the whole story, not by a long shot. There's a much bigger, longer-term trend at play here, and it all comes down to a fundamental imbalance between how much silver we're using and how much we can actually get our hands on. This right here is this simple, powerful truth that's been driving the market behind the scenes. For years now, we, as a planet, have been using more silver than we've been able to mine. And this isn't a one-off thing. It's what they call a structural deficit. This chart shows it perfectly. On one side, you have this high and growing industrial demand. On the other, you've got a lower, more limited supply coming out of the mines. And that gap in the middle, that's the market deficit. And when you have a long-term deficit like this, it naturally puts upward pressure on the price. It creates a pretty strong foundation for its value. So with all these different forces pulling in opposite directions, what do the experts think? Where is the price of silver heading from here? Let's take a quick look at some of the forecasts. Okay, so according to the analysts, they're expecting to see a bit of a dip by the end of this quarter, maybe down to around $81. But if you look out over the next 12 months, they expect it to bounce back and trade closer to $88 an ounce. So it seems that even with these short-term drops, the longer-term outlook is still pretty strong in their view. So really, the price of silver is in this constant tug of war. On one side, you've got these powerful forces pulling the price up, that strong industrial demand and that long-term supply deficit we talked about. But pulling just as hard on the other side are the downward pressures, like when political tensions ease and people feel less of a need for that safe haven. And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? In this complex dance of supply, demand, and global events, is silver still that stable, safe harbor it's been known as for centuries, or has its new role in technology and all this recent volatility turned it into more of a risky gamble? It's definitely something to think about.